Alright, so here's a little something I messed up on, informing you all during my original Spyro the Dragon video. As soon as the Reignited trilogy was announced, I knew I wanted to do videos on the original Spyro games, so I started playing all 3 of the games to full completion. Well, minus the skill points in the later 2. I mention this to explain why I even talk about completing these games in my videos. After all, I don't really go out of my way to 100% most games. So, let's continue things with Year of the Dragon, an interesting amalgamation between the first 2 Spyro games. Don't worry, I'll address this later. Side note, I love that title. It fits for some lore in the Dragon realms, and the game was also released on the Year of the Dragon. Nice little thing there. Now, the setup to this game is pretty simple. We're back in the Dragon realms, and for some reason, Hunter is here. Anyway, while everyone is asleep, some hooded figure emerges from a hole with an army of Rhinox, and they begin to steal all the dragon eggs. Upon doing so, they accidentally wake everyone up, but still manage to escape with the eggs. So, the Dragon Elders turn to Spyro's help once more to retrieve the eggs, since he's the only one who can fit through the hole. Spyro and Hunter find themselves in the Forgotten Realms, where they run into the hooded figure known as Bianca, who it turns out is an apprentice mage. She stole the eggs for her superior known as the Sorceress. Okay, I won't spoil why the Sorceress wants the eggs, but it certainly is a villain-esque thing to do. Unfortunately, the Sorceress just isn't that interesting or all that memorable, and a part of that has to do with the fact that Spyro never really interacts with her all that much. Thankfully, instead, we have Bianca, who consistently is running into Spyro and has much more of an overall presence. At the very least, it really does feel like the Sorceress is the cause of most of the issues in the worlds, since you see her Rhinox army almost everywhere. But you know, the characters are still entertaining. I like Spyro as our lead, Hunter I find to be more likable this time around, the rebel animals have some quirky personalities, I'll get more into them later, and Bianca is the most interesting character with an actual arc and is my personal favorite. What helps sell these characters is really good voice acting. It's nothing amazing, but everyone manages to deliver their lines very well. On top of that, I couldn't help but to notice how much more animation and detail was put into the cutscenes. I mean, visually the game is on par with Ripto's Rage. We still have some good character models, fluid animation, and some well-detailed texture work here. So to sum up my feelings on the story, it's fine and mostly fun. The biggest thing it's lacking is the world isn't quite as interesting as Avalar, and the Sorceress isn't as great of a villain, and beating her in the end isn't as satisfying. Okay, so let's move on to the gameplay. So once again, this is a Collectathon 3D platformer, where you travel to different hub worlds that each have their own set of levels that you can enter through these portals. One small touch I really like about this game is the portals. This time around, each portal looks different to match the theme of its corresponding level, which is cool. Spyro has the same controls and abilities as before. He can charge, blow fire, and glide, but in addition to that, Spyro also retains his abilities from Ripto's Rage. So, right at the beginning, Spyro can swim, climb ladders, and head smash. Alright, awesome, sounding good so far. Sparks still represents Spyro's health, and you can heal him up by eating butterflies. So then that begs the question, what are the collectibles this time? Well, this time around, there are only 2 kinds of collectibles. We have gems, and we have dragon eggs. First off, gems. Yeah, they're found everywhere and they're fun to collect, but what do you need them for? Well, because everyone's favorite greedy bear returns, and in some levels he'll act as a roadblock who you'll need to pay to continue on. If you aren't trying to fully complete the game, then just collect the gems you come across and do a little exploring, and you'll be fine. The biggest reason you'll need to collect gems is to free the rebel animals. There's one in each hub world, and you can only set them free by bribing moneybags, and thankfully, the rebel animals treat moneybags as anyone properly should. See, you need to free these rebel animals because of how the game progresses. Okay, so the dragon eggs you collect can be found lying around in levels or earned by completing missions. These eggs are needed to unlock later portals, and most of the portals are opened by first collecting a certain amount of eggs. You're going to have to play through every level minus the speedway levels and the special sparks ones. This is because in order to move on to the next hub world, you need a resident from each level to start the vehicle that'll take you to the next hub world. And this is something I'm a little split on. I personally prefer when collectathons are more like the original Spyro game or Super Mario 64, where you can pretty much play the levels you enjoy and still manage to progress through the game with what you're able to collect. Making me have to play through every level isn't bad, just a bit off, and is something that the game shares with Ripto's Rage, kinda. At the very least, we have a variety of levels to explore, like a shipwreck graveyard, a weather controlling temple in the clouds, a swamp with these little huts and trees, and a haunted tomb. Even the enemies still have some variety to them. Sure, a lot are Rhinox, but they are often different kinds of Rhinox for each levels. And here we get that mixture of Spyro 1 and 2 the most. Okay, so most of the levels are more open, and have a few residents to run into, and often reward you for exploration, much like the levels in Spyro 2. But some of the other levels are much more linear and have very few residents that you'll encounter, feeling more like the levels from Spyro 1. This I think works out really well, as the levels are well designed, the more open levels offer some exploration, while the more linear levels offer better platforming challenges. The music to some of these levels is fantastic too. Once again, Stuart Copeland returns to compose the music, and there are fun themes like the upbeat Charmed Ridge theme, the inviting hub world themes, and my personal favorite, the Bamboo Terrence theme. The only issue is my copy of the game tends to glitch out when it comes to music and audio. Here, listen to this for yourself. Yeah, that didn't sound right, which is just a personal bummer for me. So let's get back to those rebel animals because each of them have their own level and play differently. Starting with the best, we have Sheila the kangaroo, who's all about jumping up high and kicking enemies. She's also fast, so it's often fun platforming with her. Sergeant Bird has a great personality, but only okay controls. He can fly around and pick things up, which just feels a little clunky. Thankfully, he comes with rockets that kinda home in on enemies when shot out. Bentley the Yeti is more slow, but he has a fun club to use for bashing enemies and a deflection twirl thing that's rarely ever used. And lastly, we have Agent 9, who can jump around, shoot at enemies, or throw grenades, but is often used in these first-person shooting modes. Once you have freed a rebel animal, they can appear in certain levels, so I recommend freeing them first in each hub world. If you're fully completing the game, you only have to backtrack a few times because you can complete all but one, kinda two levels in each hub world. You just need to know which levels can't be completed at your first visit. So yeah, in a lot of the levels, there are separate sections where you will often find your missions. These will range from playing as a rebel animal, helping a figure skater, chasing bandits, going down a slide, or weirdly enough, using vehicles. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of these, but they don't show up too often like the tanks in the Haunted Tomb level, or an odd focus on skateboarding. I'll give them this, the skateboarding controls really well and can be fun to use. I just find it odd it's here. Some missions though aren't super fun, like the whack-a-mole one with Bentley. Speedway levels return, and of course, much like the second game, you have to clear out objects in a certain amount of time, and there is an NPC to find to complete a mission. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of would be these racing sections. They aren't hard, no, they're boring. Listen, this is my own personal pet peeve, but I hate racing sections in platformers. There are very few exceptions, but for the most part, I tend to not enjoy these. Here, it's just dull and feels like it goes on forever. Oh, and I should mention, there is a part in this game where Hunter gets captured, so he'll disappear from levels where you would otherwise find him, and the Speedway levels are some of these. Lastly, we have Sparks levels. These are like top-down shooter-style areas that are kinda neat. Sparks can get some cool different weapons, and he has a charge move to get away from clusters and bosses. The point of playing these, aside from getting an egg and gems, is to get Sparks' own new skills. It kinda sucks that Sparks doesn't start off with his gem compass-like ability. You have to earn it first. He can also get other abilities like grabbing gems from further distances, having an extra hit, which is awesome, and being able to warp to other levels via the use of your guidebook. This is the most useless skill for me, since you can only play these levels after beating the boss, and since you get the warp ability after beating the sorceress, and I play the game to full completion, it becomes completely useless for me. I don't know why these levels are blocked off after boss fights, but these will force you to backtrack to hub worlds in order to play them. Boss fights aren't too bad, they put up a challenge mostly, and certainly look intimidating. The final boss though is quite a pushover compared to the previous game. Skill points return and they actually are marked in the guidebook, but they only tell you where the skill points are located. So for collecting all the dragon eggs and gems, you unlock a special bonus level to get more gems to take on the final boss one more time and earn the final egg. And it's alright. It's fun flying around, I just don't enjoy the racing section, cause yeah, I know, what a big surprise. Overall, I still love this game, as it's an entertaining 3D collectathon platformer that is easy enough for first-time players, but still offers a decent challenge for those who want to fully complete the game. Personally, this is my favorite of the original 3 games, but just barely. It offers a wide variety of levels to play through, decent boss fights, and charming characters. I love all 3 of these games, and I'm kinda looking forward to the upcoming remakes. For certain, when the Reignited trilogy comes out, I'm gonna play through all 3 games to 120, 100, and 117%. Until then, I'll see you guys next time, where we'll be going back to my PlayStation 2 marathon.